Hello, what is all this then? It's No Rolls Barred's first proper review of like a current game, sort of. So, as a channel, we've held off from doing these for a little bit. We wanted the channel to grow first before we started trying to keep up with the endless sprint of current game releases. Also, pandemic, we felt uncomfortable reviewing games that couldn't be given a proper playtest with a proper player count. Well, have no fear, that's why we're jumping in with Chronicles of Crime by Lucky Duck Games, the first in a family of crime-solving mystery games that you can comfortably play by yourself or ideally with two players. There's also a new installment out, Chronicles of Crime 1400, kindly provided to us by Asmodee UK, which we'll be looking at a little bit later, but first, let's see how Chronicles of Crime plays. Chronicles of Crime sees you playing a flat-foot detective in Her Majesty's police force, zipping around London and solving surprisingly grisly crimes for a game with this style of art. Like, the tutorial case is about a dead old lady. Each case will see you using a free app on your phone, and I'm going to just use the tutorial case, by the way, to minimise spoilers. You'll use this app to scan locations in order to travel there, where you might find people with a number that you draw from a deck of motley faces. These are people you can talk to, scan them to start talking to them, and then you can ask them about clues you've already found, or the victim, or other suspects, all by scanning those things. The app also plays little bits of exciting music, or provides background noise from locations you're at, and you'll also use it, crucially, to explore a 360-degree rendering of various crime scenes, which you could also do with VR headgear if you want. Don't though. After you've explored a crime scene, you'll search through this little deck of various types of clue that you might have found during your brief nosy of the scene. There was one of these, oh, definitely one of these. You scan types of objects that you found, and if they were, in fact, there at the crime scene, and important, they become official clues, which you add to your crime board. And you can use them on suspects that range from the relatively normal to the preposterously shady, to demand an explanation for this. Tell me about papers! So going from location to location, using items on people, Chronicles of Crime is a communal point-and-click adventure game, which is such a cool concept. Gathering around the screen, pointing, oh, what about there, and maybe using, ask them about the poison, head over there, turn up the heat, make him sweat, seduce his dad, 'cause you did it, didn't you bastards! You also have a team of experts that you can call up at any time to lend their expertise. Hackers can break into phones dropped at the crime scene. Criminologists can reveal details from these preposterously shady suspects' past. Scientists can analyse chemicals that you found at the scene. The doctor will give you the cause of death. You're given all of these tools, and then there's this real thrill in having physical cards laid out in front of you, scanning the expanse of the table, trying to draw connections between the clues, which you tie together with your phone, stitching the pieces into a big quilt of murder. Now, when you think you've got the case solved, head back to headquarters for tea and biscuits and a little quiz. Who killed who? Why? Where's the murder weapon now? And then you've done it. You've solved the case. Except it's not that easy. And, if I'm honest, rarely that satisfying. See, like any good whodunit, each case is packed with suspects and red herrings, and sometimes if you miss a clue or forget to ask one person about one thing, the story elements can refuse to knit together until, again, like any point-and-click adventure game, you end up just wandering around using the same item on everybody just to try and make something happen. Which wouldn't be so bad if not for the fact that Chronicles of Crime won't leave me alone. See, in order to create a case that feels urgent, everything you do costs you time. Precious minutes of time. Questions cost 5 minutes each. Moving location costs 20 minutes. Looking at crime scenes multiple times so that, you know, everyone gets a chance to play with the cool toy. It all costs you time you don't have. Now, sure, lots of mystery solving games like Unlock or the Exit games or Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, it's more about, okay, you took this long, so that means you get this many points at the end. And you go, oh, I see, I don't care. And the game goes, yeah, we didn't think you would. Some people might. Who, you might say? People who comment on internet forums, they respond, and you say, okay, fair enough, sorry about them. But in Chronicles of Crime, taking your time isn't a difference between a B+ and a B- rating at the end of the game. In this game, if you dilly-dally, sometimes actual plot points pass you by. Things explode, evidence gets lost, characters you could have spoken to move or are killed. Or maybe your boss just imposes an arbitrary time limit. Have your results on my desk by 6 because some of us have got MasterChef to watch. Now, I realise that in describing some of that, I probably made it sound quite cool, and it is cool. It's a mechanic that makes Chronicles of Crime the most exhilarating and living and breathing puzzle game available on the market today, but also the most stressful. See, in a game with red herrings built into it as an absolute of the genre, this mechanic feels like it punishes you for doing basic due diligence. You keep getting texts from your captain being like, why haven't you solved it yet? Someone else has died. And it's like, leave me alone, Dad, I'm trying. And then you turn around and the witness you were talking to is gone because it's 5 o'clock and now they're somewhere else. Or, oh no, they're dead now. Running out of time and then getting the questions wrong at the end of the scenario because you didn't ask one suspect one question feels like a slap in the face. Like, I'm sorry I didn't exhaust every possible lead. You were breathing down my fucking neck, game. Seriously, stop staring at me. It's not like games of Consulting Detective, where you're given all the elements and you can just luxuriate in the case, read the newspapers, make copious notes, revisit places at your leisure. I mean, sure, that style has its own problems. The lack of a deadline can make cases feel woolly, dramatically. The impetus fizzles out, leaving players unsure when the case has actually ended and when they should present their findings. It feels like Chronicles of Crime has implemented this sort of hurry-up system in order to keep focus and pace and encourage players to then replay a case they've already half solved, retread their steps in order to maximize their next run, and some gamers will like that, and some gamers will not. If it feels like I'm bagging on what sounds like a cool experience to you, please let it be known that I respect Chronicles of Crime. It takes a very traditional puzzle game setting and infuses it with this unique urgency and energy. It may not be to everyone's taste, but Chronicles of Crime made a choice. It's going to make the most exciting, nerve-wracking, pulse-quickening, cinematic mystery game it can, and it stuck with that choice. It's also a great system. Using faces and these broad clue categories allows for a lot of different scenarios to be conjured just using these base elements. Gameplay meet Frankenstein over a really sturdy skeleton. There's already a number of user-generated cases that you can buy as add-ons. The game gives you a toolbox, in fact, to create your own murder mysteries. That's neat. And there's a number of expansions, a film noir one, a Stranger Things /It/E.T. Kids on Bikes style one, and to be honest, none of them interest me. Film noir and Stranger Things are well-worn genres, and Chronicles of Crime's writing already has this cliche quality to it, by design, to be clear, in order to be as pacey as it is, for narrative connections to be made at the speed that Chronicles of Crime needs you to make them. It deals with a lot of paper-thin characters, genre stereotypes, drug addicts, crazies, so you can assume things quickly, but it doesn't exactly make me want to run out and buy more cases from other genres that already kind of feel played out. But what has interested me is this, Chronicles of Crime 1400, the first in what Lucky Duck are calling their Chronicles of Crime Millennium series. Each set in Paris, there are 3 games, and together they stretch across a millennium, the first in 1400, the second in 1900, and the third in 2400. That's cool! Detective work in medieval France around Notre Dame. At the turn of the 20th century, the Belle Epoque, cultural and technological innovations, the far future with how that will change criminal investigation. That's super interesting. That feels like Chronicles stepping out of its tropey comfort zone to deliver something with more nuance, maturity, and unique narrative flavour. So, let's take another step into the choppy waters of Chronicles of Crime and have a look at Chronicles 1400. Get out of here, base game! Ah! That is going to require so much cleanup for what is such a small bit.
One eternity later.
There we go, hated that. So let's start off with the big question. In 1400, has the Chronicles of Crime system improved? Answer, big yes! And a tiny no. There's a lot of improvements that make the game feel more substantial than its scrappy, slightly more generic, cliched forebear. The art is much improved, less cartoony, more nuance of expression on the characters. In some admittedly nebulous adherence to historical accuracy, the cast of characters is pretty much entirely white European, with the exception of literally Esmeralda from Victor Hugo's Hunchback of Notre Dame. No, the character is actually called Esmeralda. Some may find that disappointing. It didn't bother me too much, if I'm honest. The location cards, the characters, the unique clues, when the table starts to fill up, it's pretty gorgeous, and it does make for a really immersive game. The setting's also fantastic. Sure, there aren't any bombs about to go off, but what the game loses in modern bombast, it gains in a more fully realised world, with the radical differences in the family institution, the total cultural domination of the church, old taboos giving us new motives, a cool variety of locations, grisly objects of medieval macabre, and crimes spurred by the familiar and eternal causes, love, jealousy, revenge, but also perhaps the divine. Mechanically, there's some twists to the formula. Instead of the scientist, hacker, criminologist, etc., you have your family, who all live with you in a Brady Bunch meets Scooby-Doo situation, a spy who's an expert in the most notable Parisians, a merchant who's an expert in items, and a monk expert in them upstairs, which is super useful because there is a lot of religious elements in this game. Oh, you naughty, naughty priests, who would have got away with it if it wasn't for us. And our little dog, too. That's right, you also get a good boy. A beautiful little Scoob called Percival, who can locate people and objects by their scent. Find some clothes, give him a whiff, and he might take you to a new location and track down a vital suspect. Percival's presence adds a light-heartedness to what is otherwise a familiarly dark and cynical world. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. You're going to go for the neck, aren't you, Percival? Yeah, you're going to go for the neck, aren't you, boy? And he's not just a location unlocking function in Good Boy's clothing. Without spoilers, clever uses of Percival are key to blowing some cases wide open. Finally, and best of all, are these vision cards. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, the main character you're playing has supernatural powers of clairvoyance, like a muddy Parisian precog. Before every case starts, you lay out a number of these vision cards representing fragmented nightmare scenes your detective has had the night before, ill omens of things to come, bizarre little tableaus you don't quite understand at the beginning. These little scenes, you'll go into the case having no clue what they mean, but they'll all most likely come true or have happened in the past, and as more characters and plot elements are introduced, you'll start to draw connections between the visions and the reality taking shape on the board. It's genuinely lovely when you meet someone for the first time and you recognize them from one of the nefarious parts of your vision. Everyone around the table goes, "Ah, it's him from the thing. Hang him." Or we could look for some more evidence, I guess, but I do already have this rope. There's even elements of spot the hidden object puzzles on the cards, with certain images being repeated across vision cards, maybe providing you with suggestions of where that vision's taking place, who else might be at that location, what items originally came from there. Now, these vision cards smooth out a lot of what I found so frustratingly jagged and bitty in base Chronicles. Finding something that links up one of your vision cards with what's happening, it peppers the case with little moments of tangible progress, which gives structure and weight to the whole case. They also give you clues, links between characters you otherwise might not have made. Now, some gamers who prefer a bit of a tougher challenge might find this a little bit hand-holdy. Cool, don't play with them then, the game says you don't have to. But for me, where base Chronicles often had cases that felt like a jumble of disconnected locations and plot threads that you could get lost in between, and the game, by the way, would not forgive you for it, 1400's visions give the cases a bit more focus, keeping certain plot threads close to the forefront of your attention. They don't spoil the cases, they're just another tool in building this bigger picture, which ultimately makes it more palatable, the fact that the game is still really, really punishing. The crushing eyeball flicking time limit is still there, and this time it's brought a friend. You can accidentally offend some characters' medieval sense of decorum, and they'll refuse to speak to you anymore, locking off a part of the case. At one point, we accidentally triggered this by talking to someone else about something the offended character didn't want us to talk about, only we didn't know that character didn't want us to talk about it because we hadn't actually spoken to them yet. Whoops, the game says, as you answer the end of scenario questions incorrectly. Do you want to play this game again and get it right this time? No, game, I want you to stop stepping on my f***ing chest! Ultimately, do we recommend Chronicles of Crime 1400? Yes. Actually, quite a bit more than I thought I would. It occasionally still feels like I'm being hit with a hammer, but it's a nicer, more interesting hammer. It's a relatively cheap box, about $20, which for the 4 cases you get, plus a much better tutorial case than base Chronicles, I would say, makes it good value, and the best version of the Chronicle system that currently exists. Great components, a better realised game world. The game can beat you up, but with the vision cards, your mistakes do end up feeling more your fault than the games. Definitely makes me keen to play the other 2 games in the Millennium series, so for the first part of a trilogy, that's done its job. If you're looking for a whodunit style puzzle game with nuance and definitely a lot more adrenaline than most other mystery games, Chronicles of Crime 1400 is a really good example of that. I'd actually recommend it over the base game in a heartbeat. It's clever, more narratively rich, and a lot more accessible to a user trying this style of game for the first time. Start here. If you love it, maybe think about this. Maybe, like, there's some beautiful craft in this box. I just wish it didn't hate me so much. And that is our review of Chronicles of Crime and Chronicles of Crime 1400. What do you think? Have you tried the game? Do you want to pick it up? Let us know in the comments. And if you like this video, please do share it around. Give us a like. Give us a subscribe if you haven't already. And check out the rest of No Rolls Barred for more awesome and silly, mostly silly, board game content. Get on board!